I came out quite publicly in November last year, so I'm almost at 6 months of it. And looking before and after, I think you build a few things up in your own head, and the professionals that I work with, as well as the youth players, are very understanding and accepting. I think it's almost the older guard that we need to change. I hate to say it, but the baby boomers. I think to be a youth in today, you grow up and there's so many different options, and you have your eyes opened to different partners and different sexualities and on the spectrum, and where people fall. And I think the labels are being removed, and it's more fluid situation, and people aren't as black and white per se, that I think our parents are. And I think it's this generation that is really, that's where we're going to see the change. I mean, my name is Bayne Pettinger. I live in Toronto here with Brock. Well, not literally live with Brock, but in the same city. And
yeah, we're roommates.
Yeah, I'm 34 years old. 34 years old. I'm a sports agent at NHLPA, sports agent at Creative Artist Agency, which is CAA for the slang there, and which is one of the biggest agencies in North America for hockey, and responsible kind of in the GTA for recruiting, retention, everywhere from minor hockey all the way up to the professional level, and representing our athletes.
Very cool. How did Bayne get into hockey?
Bayne got into hockey. I played growing up, obviously with my brothers. I'm from Victoria on the West Coast originally. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. So the youngest that got away with a lot, and always grew up in a rink around my brothers. Both my brothers played at a higher level than myself. My one brother, Matt, in the National Hockey League for over 400 games. And then my other brother, Reed, just junior A out there. And then I worked at Hockey Canada for about 12 years, all the way from being a finance student to when I left in 2019, I was the manager of hockey operations with, several Olympics and World Juniors and World Championships and some key events, and got to travel the world representing our country, which was pretty cool. Everywhere from Korea to Czech Republic to Sweden to USA, you name it. I've been around the world and represented Team Canada, which is something pretty special to me.
That definitely is special, and it's memories you'll have for your entire life. What do you love about hockey?
I love the camaraderie. Being around. I was rugby growing up in hockey, and I don't think it's a coincidence that I'm drawn to team sports, and being around and being able to have your friends and some nowadays coworkers all share the same passion for the game. And I think whether it's I've talked about it before, it's not just playing. I quote unquote retired at age 18, and now I've been in hockey for 15 years since. And whether you're an executive, an official, an advocate, you name it, a rec league player to a professional, I think it's the passion for the game and just the camaraderie of being around like-minded people, and the competitiveness. And I don't know, I couldn't imagine myself without hockey in my life. It's all I've known. And yeah, just super thankful to be able to call it a career now, and be able to work in such a great game around great people.
That's so incredible, and it's such an incredible sport. That said, I'm wondering how, based off your intersection of identities, how hockey can be better for you, and also how could it be better for the queer community as a whole?
Yeah, I think to start, better for me. I came out quite publicly in November last year, so I'm almost at 6 months of it. And looking before and after, I think you build a few things up in your own head, and the professionals that I work with, as well as the youth players, are very understanding and accepting. I think it's almost the older guard that we need to change. I hate to say it, but the baby boomers. I think to be a youth in today, you grow up and there's so many different options, and you have your eyes opened to different partners and different sexualities and on the spectrum, and where people fall. And I think the labels are being removed, and it's more fluid situation, and people aren't as black and white per se, that I think our parents are. And I think it's this generation that is really, that's where we're going to see the change. And as far as me for accessibility, I'm one of the lucky ones. My experience has been nothing but positive, but I know that there is a lot of animosity and hate and negativity around people coming out, and especially around the sports world, which I think is sad. And I think the hockey especially is one of the last frontiers for us to really make some headway and break down those norms. And I think, gentlemen like yourself, like, Curtis Gabriel, I hope to help with that, to be kind of these beacons for people to look to and say, hey, I can be successful in the game and be gay. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're trying to change. And I think we're on the right path to doing so.
Knowing where it's at and knowing that that generation still sort of runs the sport, what keeps you in hockey?
Keeps me in hockey is the passion for the game, seeing the future change, whether it's clients that I advise and Morgan Riley and Tyson Berry, their advocacy for it, and their how can I help break down barriers. Those are two guys that are obviously very close to me and clients. But keeps me in the game is our youth too. I remember when I came out, some of them were, oh, that's it. Like there was they thought I was going to tell them I was terminally ill or something, and they were like, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you. How can I help? Right. And I think that's the shift that we're seeing. And that's what I'm really encouraged by, is the youth that, especially that I work with, whether it's at the minor hockey level or junior hockey players, that it's not a big deal. And I think we can build it up in our own heads, and we can sometimes be our own worst enemy, to think that you coming out is going to be a drastic world changer and everything's going to stop. But in hindsight, and I say that as, being on the other side of it and having come out and living my authentic self, that's not the case. And if anyone is like that, you don't want them in your lives. And you have to kind of have that attitude of that you can't change what people believe and think. You can only educate and hope that, to change some mindsets. And, I think when I look at our youth, that's the thing that really keeps me going, is the positivity and the encouragement and the inclusiveness that they have. And it doesn't have to be taught, and I think that's the biggest roadblock that we're seeing, is kind of the older generations are the ones that are still putting up a fight per se, and not really, not having that I don't really care attitude. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, and I think it's from my experiences too, it's how can we help, but it's time, I believe it's time that we got to show them how to help. You know what I mean? And then if we do that, I think we will see a much better, more inclusive sport. What gives you hope for queer people in the sport moving forward?
Yeah, I think it ties back to that the next generation coming along is far more inclusive, and I think for us, Brock, I think it's seeing people ahead of you. It's humanizing it, that if I want to be a radio host and I'm gay, okay, if no one was there, but now Scott MacArthur's there. If I want to be an NHL agent, and I'm not putting myself in the same breath as Scott and yourself, as media figures, but if I want to be an NHL agent, okay, there's Bayne Pettinger. So I think if you have someone ahead of you that's done it, and you can picture yourself in their shoes and humanize it, because if you don't, then you're like, oh, well, it's kind of uncharted waters. But now I hope, and you get reached out to all the time. So do I. And I encourage people, I've done an interview with a referee in Buffalo. And I think so now for the refs, if you see someone ahead of you that's open and honest and living their authentic self and thriving and being successful, I think that's huge, to have role models ahead of you that are like-minded like you, and can really kind of pave the way per se, to say, hey, if he can do it, why can't I?
I love that. Bayne, is there anything you'd like to add?
I just think, it sounds cliche, but I waited till I was 33 years old to come out of the closet. And when I look back, I had all these fears and, apprehensions. I wish I would have done it 5-6 years ago, and having know what I know now, the hindsight's 2020, obviously, but having known the reception that I've got, and the inclusivity and the weight that's been shedded, and how good I feel compared to when I was in my 20s and pondering what I was going to do. I would just say life's too short to not be yourself, to not give yourself to someone else. Love is love. Enjoy it. We're different. Celebrate it. And hockey, the big bad hockey world isn't that big and bad. And if you ever need someone to reach out to, Brock or myself or Scott or whoever. We hope that there's more of us to join the fight and slowly chip away on the stigma that you can't be successful in the sports world and be gay. And I hope that we're not even having these conversations a couple of years from now.
I got to tell you, you give me hope. And I'll tell you why. Beyond being a great person who I, appreciate is in my life and a friend, you're on the front lines every day and engaging with players, management, coaches, etc. You're putting a face within the culture and humanizing it for so many, and that is going to cause shifts and ripple effects. And not only because when you're around, they're going to recognize if they use language that is homonegative or homophobic, but also when you're not around, because you are so involved in their careers and their lives, they're probably going to start standing up to it. And to me, that is critical and has such a massive impact long term. So thank you for being you. Thank you for coming out. I'm so grateful that you have and that you're a part of this culture. And your impact is going to, when you're retired from the sport, your impact is going to live on.
Great. Thank you, Brock. No, I do appreciate it. And, to be on the front lines is an honor to wear this and own it. And, I'm just happy to be part of it and join the movement here and slowly chip away so that those behind us, the youth that are struggling, can see someone in front of them and hopefully makes their path a little easier and a little less anxiety filled and all that. And I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.